Hello everybody, welcome to another gardening video. Look at that weather. I mean, I can't stay inside, I can't stay out of my garden, so I hope you can't either. Because it's like early season, it's early March, and I thought I'm gonna take you into my garden and show you a little bit how I do things. I also want to invite you to stay tuned here in this Facebook group because I'm going to tell you more about it next week. But I will be doing a little tomato challenge, and that means that you can go together with me. We grow our tomatoes. We start, of course, with indoor sowing, and then we go on until we plant our plants in May into our gardens. But as I said, stay tuned for that. I'll let you know more about that next week. Now it's weekend. It's actually International Women's Day, so happy Women's Day to all the women here, and to all the men here. Just give her that little extra hug. I know you should do it every day of the year. Respect her, show affection, blah blah. But it's a nice occasion to just do a little bit extra. Okay, so let's get into the garden. As I said, it's early March, so it's time to revive your garden and to sow the first things. And especially with this kind of weather, no excuse not to do it. As you know, if you've probably seen earlier this week or last week, whatever you want to call it, I did a little video around my garden. So you might know that mine is pretty full, but I do have an empty square, and I'm going to take you with me on what I do and how I do it, as we're going to sow some radishes. I love radishes. Almost always one of the very first things that I get into my garden. Okay, so I hope you can actually see this. Should be okay like this. So here I have an empty square. So as it is after winter, still have to pick a tiny little bit of weeds out of there. Okay, so that's it. Then I'm gonna get my little trowel, and then all you do is kind of like you really loosen it up like that. Brilliant. Then I'm gonna grab a little bit of nice organic compost in there. So it's like a little bit bigger trowel than this one, but a little bit between your hands. We all know how healthy it is to get your hands in the soil, so let's do that. Let's not work too much with like tools, etc. Okay, so get that in. So that I have a nice, loose, relatively even square in my garden. So that's it. Revising of my garden. Of course, if yours completely empty, what would even be better, because then I know what has been in here until end of autumn. But if you don't, or if your garden has been completely empty over winter, it's best to do this. Of course, this one has 8 squares, so you take like this little heap of compost per square. You loosen everything up, you mix it all together. So the front through the back and left, right, everything. Then you put that little heap of compost per square. So for a garden like this, that would be 8 of those little heaps. And you mix it all in again, put your grit back on, and you're ready to go. Okay, so I have my little square here. Gotta water it a little bit, just to make sure that it's nice and moist, like that. And then, as I said, I'm gonna sow radishes. So as you know, a square has 16 radishes. So that means we're gonna make 4 rows of 4 little holes to get our radishes in. The radishes seeds, where did I put them? Here. They aren't huge. They're relatively small. Not really sure whether you can see it like this, but it's not that big. So we don't go too deep. It's one of those that you just get, you know, until just beyond your nail. That is deep enough. So don't go in like with your fingers all the way, because then the seeds are too low, too deep in the ground, and you have to see this as a little lunch package. So if you go for a stroll into town, you might only take a little bit of water, but nothing really serious. If you go for a 3-hour hike in the mountains, you take a lot more. You can decide on that. Your radish can't. They just have what they have, and if you put them too deep, they grow and grow and grow based on whatever they have on food, so to say, in the little seed. And if it's done, it's done. If they didn't reach above the ground by then, they will die. So don't put your seeds too deep in the ground. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna make 16 holes. You see, I'm not that far in the ground. It's just like that. Okay, so we all know what insurance is. We have that in our garden as well. So I put 2 seeds in every hole, just to make sure that might one not sprout, or probably maybe even more realistic, or may the blackbird hop by early morning and gets either a seed or a tiny little sprout that I actually hadn't seen yet out. I still have 1 in reserve, so that's why we put 2. Why don't we put more than 2? Well, because in the end we only have room for 16 radishes. So once they start sprouting, you have to cut them back to only 1 per location. 1 sprout per hole that we made, space that we designed for them. And we don't want, that's the hardest thing in gardening, so I don't want to make it worse than it already is. Just cutting out maybe 10, 12, well, worst case 16, that's the max I can go. So now we loosely close the holes like that. Don't go like pushing, don't go like, oh, let me close it, because then again your little seedling has to work so hard to actually reach until above the ground that it's exhausted, that it gets exhausted and maybe never makes it. And even if it makes it, an exhausting little sprout will never have the same quality root system as one that can relax. I mean, it still has to put some effort in, but in a bit more relaxed way. So, little drop on the 16 little holes. Don't put the hose on this, because you'll flush the seeds all over your garden. Because as you know, during the whole season, we keep, whenever press on the soil like this really hard, we never walk in our gardens. So the soil always stays relatively loose. So if you put the hose on your freshly sowed seeds, you will flush them all over your garden. And I can vouch for that, because last year we had that much rain and some really heavy rains. And the whole season, I found carrots coming up, I don't know where, not in the squares that I sowed them, not at the timing that I expected them. So it was a little bit messy last year. But hey, Mother Nature is somebody you have to work with, because if you try to work against her, you're gonna fail. She will never fail, you are gonna fail. So that's it. We just have to put a little sign, and here we go. Radishes sowed. It's as easy that, and I can tell you, it's not been that long. It's mainly long because I've been chatting to you. But yeah, you know, love that. Love telling you about my garden. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on replay. Tell me what you are sowing. What have you been doing in your garden? Have any questions? Let me know in the group. You don't need to put it on the comments. If you do, please tag me, because otherwise I might miss it. But you can just make a normal post in the group and tell me about what you're up to. And if you have questions, let me know. We're gearing up to the really full season, so I will have a little look. Maybe I can do a regular Q&A in the group again. But definitely we're gonna gear up for our tomato challenge. So keep an eye here on the information that I'm sharing with you, and I hope to see you soon again. Okay, enjoy the beautiful weather. I hope it is as beautiful where you live. But otherwise, I'll keep my fingers crossed that spring arrives soon wherever you are too. Okay, see you soon again. Bye-bye.